Welcome to Crossover the Pond, brought to you by 21 Media Productions and Sports Social. He's Drew Lasker, I'm Josh Sexton, and this is episode 9 as we continue our NBA basketball journey, a short hezzy tween and still to step away here in the UK. I'll be honest, listeners, I was getting ready to rank every team in the league's year of 2025, but Drew rose from a post-Christmas party slumber, scratched the record for us and said, hold up, doesn't it make sense to do that at the end of the year? Ever the smart man, Mr. Lasker, even after one too many eggnogs last night. So we're going to preview the Christmas Day slate of games today instead and save our rankings for next week. Stay tuned for that. So Christmas Day then, Drew, we've got Cavs, Knicks, Spurs, Thunder, Mavs, Warriors, Rockets, Lakers, and Timberwolves, Nuggets to round out that slate. So I thought we'd just do a bit of a tale of the tape, sort of look into each game, how each team is looking heading into those games. So we'll start with Cavs Knicks. We'll get straight into it. The Cavs at the moment are the 7th seed as we record, but they do play the Hornets tonight on this Monday evening. 15-14 record, 3-7 in their last 10. Currently on a 3-game losing streak. Injuries to Mobley, Strus and Nance that likely keep them out of the Christmas Day game as well. I think injuries have been a bit of a theme of the Cavs season generally, really, haven't they? But I don't know, I can't help but still be a little bit disappointed by this team and what it's not been able to produce on the offensive side of the ball as much as anything this season.
Yeah, they've been a disappointment. But when you really look at it, I don't know how much of a disappointment it really is, because people are trying to compare the start that they had last season, which I think they won the first 15 games or something like that. They came out the gates really hot. And they were the best three-point shooting team last season. So, they take the most this year, but that shot has just not fallen. And I think Darius Garland, that toe injury is obviously still bothering him. Yep. He doesn't look the same. He doesn't seem comfortable out there. And, so I think that's where most of Cavs fans' frustration is that they're trying to compare to the start that they had last season. And you have to look at it as well. Like, teams got better. Toronto got better. The Knicks got better. And when you look at it from that perspective, I'm not sure that I personally ever had them as a contender coming into the season, because when you look at their roster, did they actually get better? Not from a personnel standpoint. Obviously, Lonzo Ball's there, but I think it's safe to say Lonzo Ball at this point of his career, coming off those knee surgeries, he's just a facilitator. He doesn't have that quick burst to really get inside your paint. And then he's never really been a great shooter. So, a lot has been, on the shoulders of their superstar, and rightfully so. But, it's been a rough one for them.
Absolutely has been a rough one, but they're facing a team who've not had much of a rough time recently. The Knicks, the Cup Kings, the 2nd seed. They play in Minnesota on Tuesday before this Christmas Day slate of games. They're 20-8, their current record. 8-2 in their last 10. Only injuries to Landry Shamet and Miles McBride, who I think has been out for most, if not all, of the season so far now. So the game is in MSG with the great vibes and everything that's going on around the Knicks right now, Drew. And we've mentioned the kind of, less than great vibes really going on with the Cavs and whether we felt like they took a jump from last season. The Knicks certainly have under coach Mike Brown. Me and you have spoken in depth about their better shooting and all these different kinds of offensive folds that they've been able to bring in now. So I don't know. I'm just looking at this one and feeling like unless something crazy happens and Christmas Day is saved for crazy moments in NBA history, really, this feels like a Knicks win to me right off the bat.
I'm right with you. The Knicks are rolling. And the best part, if you're a Knicks fan, is that they were always in the conversation of would they be able to come out the East. But with that Cup victory, you got to think that they come out of that thing as a legitimate contender. Their camp has to have a lot of confidence to know that, and whatever you think, whatever side of the fence you are on the Cup, at the end of the day, everyone participated in that competition. So whether you're on the fence of if you take it seriously, if you're on the other side, if you think it means nothing, at the end of the day, all 30 teams participated. The Knicks walked away as the champion. I'm disappointed in the Knicks organization for not putting the banner up because –
Me too.
at the end of the day, you're not guaranteed anything in this league. So I would celebrate it personally. Milwaukee, Lakers did. But, the Knicks are rolling at the moment. You just look at Bronson. 47 points last night in a big-time win against Miami. You know, Kevin Durant, all those guys, we mentioned it before, said the 6-foot guard is becoming extinct, but he's proving you wrong. And the reason is I actually covered the Knicks on Friday against Philadelphia. I compared Jalen Brunson to Akeem Olajuwon in the paint in regards to his footwork. He does a great job of getting to 2 feet. He has these up and unders that he does. He has this fadeaway shot. He loves to draw. He's great at drawing fouls, and he does a great job with the shoulder bump to create separation. He has a nice little stop and go. So he is really leading that team. But then on the other hand as well, the same thing we mentioned with OKC, and I mentioned it with San Antonio, is that I love their depth. The Knicks got a lot of great depth as well. You know, OG Anunoby, former champion, Josh Hart, ever since he's been in the starting lineup, they've won 9 of 11 games. We know about Bridges. Jordan Clarkson and Kolek off the bench have been incredible. So easy win in my eyes on Christmas Day against the struggling Cavs, but you gotta like what New York is bringing to the table so far out the East.
Absolutely, and if nothing else, it feels like we may be able to start with a defensive clinic so long as a lot of those Cavs guys can get on the floor, because these are two teams who have been religiously good defenders, particularly over the past few years. It feels like both can still lean back on that defensive identity, even if the offensive side of the ball is not necessarily coming to the Cavs this season as much as it is to the Knicks. But we'll move on, Drew, to one game I'm really looking forward to. And we actually get a little taster of this one on Tuesday night as well. I'm not sure if you spotted this. So the San Antonio Spurs versus the OKC Thunder. The Spurs are the cup runners-up. They are the second seed out west at the moment, but they do play OKC on Tuesday evening. So before that Christmas Day slate of games, they'll have already played OKC. It'll be the third time in just a matter of weeks that they'll have played OKC when they come to meet them on Christmas Day. They currently have a 21-7 record, 8-2 in their last 10. Clean injury report, which is so satisfying to see when you log on to ESPN and see the San Antonio Spurs with a clean injury report. Again, do you like this? This is one that I'm just looking at now and wondering if there's a chance that we've finally seen a team that has the OKC Thunder's number.
I mentioned it before, the Spurs remind me a lot of OKC, so I was not surprised to see them beat them in the NBA Cup semifinals. You know, San Antonio just has so much depth. They got so many weapons there at the guard, 3-guard lineup. And this game is going to be really interesting. I actually hate the fact that they play Tuesday. I'm not sure if it's going to take away from the luster on Saturday, because if you haven't heard, Victor Wembanyama has mentioned about ethical basketball. I'm not sure if he meant the OKC Thunder, but I'm putting 2 and 2 together, and he's talking about the foul merchant that SGA is and how he draws fouls, and basically in a nutshell,
definitely
he's saying
a little shade there. Definitely a little shade
yeah, of
there.
course it is. Like, of course he is. He's saying that they don't play the right way, and I love what UD said on Prime's coverage on Friday, that, you know, at the end of the day, all the great players have always gotten to the free throw line a lot. You know, and he's mentioned that you can't whine yourself a championship. You got to go out there and earn it. And OKC Thunder has done that, regardless of how you think of their style of play. They've actually won a championship. San Antonio hasn't even made it to the playoffs since 2017. So that's going to bring a lot of juice to this matchup. So I'm really looking forward to it. And we got the preview on Tuesday. So I'm not sure if it takes away from the Christmas matchup, but at the end of the day, after watching these guys in the semifinal, I think it's safe to say I would not mind watching a 7-game series out of these two teams.
Well, let me pitch this scenario to you then, Drew, because before we come on to discuss the Thunder side of things a little bit more, imagine this like it's a trilogy of boxing matches. So the Spurs have got one over on the Thunder in the NBA Cup. Let's say the Thunder win this next one on Tuesday. Does that not just set up this Christmas Day game perfectly for you? Do you not think it gift wraps it maybe?
If it does anything, it's going to make that matchup really entertaining from a perspective. When you play a team so close, because the NBA, they don't scout as much during the regular season because games come so thick and fast. That's why playoff basketball is so entertaining, and that's why the game slows down and they get into the mud, as the pundits like to say, because They have an opportunity to really lock in on a scouting report from an individual standpoint and a team standpoint. So things don't come as easy. Offenses has to go to third and fourth options because the team's always going to take option one and option two away. So from that perspective, or to use your boxing analogy, this could be round 3, but also it will be a great insight into what playoff basketball looks like, as we saw there in the Cup.
Absolutely. Well, moving on to the OKC Thunder, they are, of course, the first seed out west. They've got Memphis before that Spurs game, so a little back-to-back for them, but I can't imagine they'll take that Memphis game very seriously. If you see their injury report so far, 25-3 record, 8-2 in their last 10, of course, with those extra 2 losses, now having lost to the Minnesota Timberwolves last week as well. As I say, that injury report is stacked for the game against Memphis. It feels like they're probably icing some of those guys for this couple of revenge matches. I don't know where I stand on the OKC Thunder now, Drew. You could maybe convince me that the crown has slipped a little in the past few weeks and that they don't necessarily look like the team that can beat the Warriors' record of 73-9. But then sometimes I watch them and again, like, even if you think the crown is slipping, you just realise this is an unbelievable basketball team. And I think there are stretches of this season, large stretches, where they could easily repeat the kind of record they'd have so far. And by the way, if they did, they would beat that 73-9 record.
I mean, what are we talking about here? They're 25-3. I mean, there's no need to panic because they lost 2 games within a week. The same juggernaut. They just had a rough patch. Like, this is the NBA. I was never under the consideration that they were going to win 78 games. I thought that was ridiculous, even though I still think they'll get the Golden State record. They're still on pace. They have an injury report is stacked tonight, but I just think that's due to the fact of their schedule. They played on Friday. They play tonight on Monday, Tuesday, Christmas. If you look at Friday's game against Minnesota, they got a lot of those bodies back. So this is more of a maintenance thing. And I also think that they have to plan with everybody back. That's different when you have created a rhythm for yourself as a and you get your main pieces back. It's an adjustment for guys who have had a bigger role. You have to pretty much go back to your hole. And so I just think it's a case of them having to figure out how to integrate Dort back into the lineup, and a lot of those other. But once they do, they're going to go back to business as usual. And I think it starts here in Memphis, even with half a team. I think they'll take care of the Grizzlies, who have been really hot, by the way. I spoke about Memphis last episode. But OKC to be very motivated because, firstly, how they lost on Friday against Minnesota. They're going to want to take care of business against San Antonio because of the things that Wembanyama said. But then also the psychological battle. They know they're going to have to see San Antonio on the path to an NBA title. So you're going to want to put them in their place and not give them the confidence. And so I see them taking care of San Antonio twice in a week.
Oof. Tough prediction from Drew there. I'm going to say that they win that Tuesday one to set up this amazing finale, but I'm going to go with the Spurs on Christmas Day. I think the Spurs' rest advantage going into that Christmas Day game could buoy them, having not had that back-to-back in the same way that the Thunder will have done. I'm really liking those Spurs 3-guard lineups that you mentioned at the moment, Drew. It's 3 big guards. They just look like they've got a lot of size, a lot of athleticism. The defensive side of the ball is kind of taking care of itself, and it's not just Wembanyama's gravity that is ensuring that it takes care of itself. They've got a team full of great defenders, really, even guys who come off the bench who can defend well as well. They've got guys who are coming off the bench who can shoot the ball and attack well as well. And then the starting 5 has been really, really impressive to me this season. So I'm going to go with San Antonio to split our predictions, but we'll move on to this next game. The Dallas Mavericks versus the Golden State Warriors. Arguably the minnow tie, really, if you want to call it that, of Christmas Day. But I still think there's some really interesting storylines that can come from this one. The Mavs are currently the 11th seed. They've got the Pelicans and the Nuggets on a back-to-back before they go into that Christmas Day game. 8-11 record so far, 6-4 in their last 10 though. The injury report is stacked for that game against the New Orleans Pelicans, but again, possible that they're bracing for bigger challenges to come. Anthony Davis is back in the hot seat. Cooper Flagg has arrived on the scene now. Probably, I've not actually checked the key rookie ladder, but I imagine he is edging towards the top of that again, if not already back to reclaim his crown. So, do you think there's a chance, Drew, with this Dallas Mavericks team now, we're witnessing the start of them really starting to turn the tide from the bad team they looked like at the start of the season?
Absolutely. They're trending forward, and a lot of that is Cooper Flagg. You know, he took a lot of criticism at the beginning of the season, and a lot of that was due to the fact that he was playing point guard, so he struggled. Point guard is one of the toughest positions to play, let alone for an 18-year-old kid. So Cooper Flagg struggled out the gate, but you're really starting to see that experiment at the point guard position beginning to pay dividends, because now we already know the work that he could do from the mid post, but he's working a lot from the middle third. He's able to initiate the offense. He's able to attack from the middle third. He gets down to his left hand at will. If there's any criticism, it's the three ball, but that'll come over time. But he's playing terrific. I mean, he was the youngest to score 40 points the other day. He just turned 19 yesterday. So, yeah, with Anthony Davis getting healthier, it's going to only make it easy for him. And, yeah, I like the way that Dallas is looking over the last couple of weeks. You mentioned it, 6-4 over their last 10 games. They're starting to find their identity, and that identity is on the shoulders of a 19-year-old. He's beginning to prove why he was mentioned as a generational talent at the beginning of the season, and you know they've been able to find out a solution to the point guard position by putting Nembhard there, the two-way player that you got to think that contract's going to get turned into a NBA standard contract here pretty soon. Yeah, they got the pieces. Clay is starting. I mean, Clay shot 40%, you know, over the last month, so he's playing better. They just quietly going about their business. I think they're going to be climbing up the ladder here in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think some respect has to go to Jason Kidd, really. Me and you both criticised, I guess, to some extent, that decision to make Cooper Flagg the point guard coming into the season. But you've referenced some of the sort of tactical elements of Cooper Flagg's game that you're really seeing coming to the fore. And I do believe some of that is the kind of tough decision that Jason Kidd had to take by making Cooper Flagg a point guard, make him sort of learn the game of the NBA the harder way, really, but be able to see the floor on a more sort of wider perspective. You think about floor generals in the NBA, those were guys who had to get these hard reps, had to be out there night in, night out, and you know, getting these kind of things, building up that vision. And Cooper Flagg has certainly been able to do that. And I think you're seeing the rewards of that now, even if he's not playing sort of point guard still night in, night out for the Mavericks. I think you're seeing a more complete side of his game start to come through. And I want to pick up just a little bit on that point that you mentioned about his three-point shooting, Drew, because I'm seeing some crazy narratives about VJ Edgecombe, particularly on the 76ers at the moment, with the shooting splits that he has. And like when these guys are coming into the league, and especially coming out of college and stuff, like they go from shooting, you know, heavily in college, particularly if they're part of colleges that take part in March Madness and things. That's one of the things we love about March Madness, is that you see these guys, you know, jacking up crazy kinds of shots night after night, and some of them are going in, and that's when we're losing our minds as fans watching that and celebrating. There's naturally a period of adaptation to the league, so I think we just shouldn't be reading too much into shooting splits for guys who are rookies. As you said there, Drew, you know, Cooper Flagg is starting to arrive in terms of his three ball, but he needed that period of adaptation, so I'm pleased that you pointed that out, because yeah, some of those narratives I'm seeing, particularly about someone like VJ Edgecombe, I'm not enjoying, because it sort of feels like it stunts the development of these guys who, you know, I'm completely sure in the case of both VJ and of Cooper that they are going to be great NBA players for many, many years to come. We'll flip over to the Warriors side of this matchup, though, Drew. The 8th seed at the moment. They play the Orlando Magic tonight. 14-15 record. They've been hovering around 500 and dropping either a game below or a game above for what feels like most of the season, really. 4-6 in their last 10. Injuries still to Al Horford and Seth Curry. this team could really use Al Horford right now, I think, to be honest, to sort of free what Draymond Green is having to do at the centre position up just a little bit, potentially add some offence to that front court as well. As we know, Al can shoot the three ball well, as he did with the Celtics throughout so many years. My only concern with the Warriors, Drew, or my main concern with the Warriors, I guess, is that similar to the Clippers, similar to the Sacramento Kings, really, this just looks like another old team whose roster isn't constructed well enough to compete. And I think, Draymond Green referenced it the other day. It's been referenced a couple of times by Steve Kerr throughout this season. What really is the biggest struggle for the Warriors is that any night that Steph doesn't have a Steph Curry kind of night, or any night that Steph needs to even sit out for injuries or one reason or another, Jimmy Butler needs to be able to arrive at the party, and that's what they thought they were getting when they signed Jimmy Butler. And unfortunately, whether it's his knees, whether it's something physical that he's feeling, or whether he's just lost a step really down the years now, Jimmy Butler, he doesn't look like that Jimmy Butler of old who can completely take over a game, and that is where I think Golden State are left the most wanting at the moment.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head. They're old. This window has officially come to a close. Is so much talk around the roster, specifically Kuminga. He's gotten a couple of DNPs. So it's just that dark cloud that's just hanging over them. And I had an opportunity to catch up with an old friend of mine, Fab Flournoy, my former coach, who is the assistant coach for the 76ers. And something that he said really stood out to me in regards of this new NBA of what you got to have. He said, there's three things that you got to have now. You got to have depth, youth, and length. In that order. He said, obviously, you got to have talent. Talent is always going to get you there. But you got to have depth. We mentioned it about OKC. We mentioned it about Spurs. They have so much depth. They can go 8, 9-man rotations. Look at those teams' length as well. Like, they're long. All these great teams have a plethora of guys who are 6'7", 6'8", 3-and-D versatile guys that could switch, who could step out and hit the three. And then most importantly, I keep using OKC and San Antonio Spurs because they fit this narrative perfectly. You got to be young. Like, you got to be young in this new NBA. You got to have legs. You got to be able to run. And you look at Golden State, they don't fit any of those categories. Like, they're really small. Draymond's playing the 5. You got Steph out there. They're just little. They're old. Steph, Draymond, all those guys are old. Kuminga's young, but he's on the bench. And they don't have any options coming off the bench. I wonder if you should put Jimmy Butler and bring him off the bench. And so that's exactly where Golden State sits. It's no fault of theirs. It's just the NBA has passed them by. Like they have many teams. It's just this league moves fast, and you have to always be with the times. And right now, Golden State, they'll sneak into the playoffs, but they're not beating anybody in a 7-game series.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting one come the postseason. I actually don't think they'll sneak into the playoffs, to be honest. I think they'll be a playing team, but ultimately a losing playing team. I don't know if that's just me still being optimistic about my Clippers and a late resurgence. Maybe it isn't, spoiler listeners. I wonder if the Mavs can take this one, if they can survive that back-to-back fully healthy. I don't know. There's something about Christmas Day and Steph Curry, Drew, that I'm wondering if the Warriors can just sneak a little something here.
I would love to see it. He's going to bring something magical. He always does. He loves these moments on national television. He's going to prove that he still has it and he's still that guy. But ultimately, I think even with the back-to-back, these are just two teams that's just trending in the wrong direction. Although Golden State won on Saturday to break that 3-game losing streak, I just think the youth of Dallas, they have no one to guard Anthony Davis down there. And that's just all that's going to do is give more space for Cooper Flag. So I am going with the Mavericks on this one.
Yep, we'll move on to the Rockets then. The Rockets versus the Lakers is another matchup that I'm really looking forward to be honest. It feels like two teams who could get quite chippy out there as long as everybody is on the floor. The Rockets are the 6th seed right now. They lost to the Kings very surprisingly last night in overtime thanks to a Dennis Schroeder corner 3-pointer. They play the Clippers on Tuesday before this one. 17-9 record, 5-5 in the last 10. Injury report, of course, still contains Freddie VanVleet and Dorian Finney-Smith. Adams was just rested. Steven Adams for that game against the Sacramento Kings. Some ropey losses, to be honest, Drew, from the Rockets in the past few weeks. Is it fair to say that depth of offensive talent / maybe even depth in general is starting to show up a little bit for this team?
I think it's more so that point guard position. You're really starting to see that they need Fred VanVleet, who could possibly come back this season. Reed Shepherd has been solid, but they just need that guy to get them organized. And also, like, I'm confused in what the Rockets are doing because they've lost a couple of close games. And the reason why they brought Kevin Durant there is because they needed a closer. And he hasn't really been closing the games as of late. They haven't called his number, and obviously teams are going to take him away and take the ball out of his hands. But I just think the season is beginning to catch up to the Rockets, who got that great start. And those offensive numbers that they had at the beginning of the season, they had, their offensive rating, they were number 1 in the league. They were number 1 in three-point percentage, even though they were taking the least amount of takes. Those shots aren't falling as much anymore. They're really missing Tari Eason, who was a top 5 3-point shooter at the beginning of the season. But then Finney-Smith, what's the latest on him? He hasn't even suited up this year. I'm not exactly sure what his timeline is, but he is a legitimate starter in this league. 40% or better 3-point shooter, can guard the opponent's best wings. So they desperately need him. They need to get healthy, as you mentioned. But more importantly, I just think their offense has just come back to earth.
Yeah, and another team you could argue whose maybe offense has come back to earth. The two-headed monster has at least been severed a little bit in the last few weeks with the Los Angeles Lakers. They are the 4th seed currently out west. They play the Suns on Tuesday before the Christmas Day game, which I can see them taking a few body blows in. 19-8 record, 6-4 in their last 10. The injury report was stacked for their loss to the Clippers over the weekend. Doncic went down too in that one with a lower left leg contusion. It was a heavy loss to a bad Clippers team, Drew, even with guys out. I was watching it and just thinking, this team misses Austin Reeves' shot creation so much whenever he's out. And if him and Luka Doncic are both going to be out for this game against the Rockets, I'm basically calling it game over before it's even begun, because no matter what the Rockets look like in terms of offensive consistency, this Lakers team without Luka Doncic and Austin Reeves has got no offense, basically. So if they can get those guys back on the floor, close game, but if not, I'm calling this one straight away.
Yeah, I'm with you. This is a great opportunity for the Rockets, and I just don't believe in the Lakers. When I watched them play, I've analyzed them 3 times this season, and to me, they look like a solid regular season team because they have the talent, which Fab mentioned, that you got to have talent in this league, but they are missing in those other departments with the youth, the length, and the depth. They're the number 1 team in the league in scoring with their starting 5, but they have one of the worst benches in the entire league. They're just too heavily dependent on Luka Doncic. And when he goes out, you see what happens. You lose to the Clippers. And, they only have 5 initiators. That's Luka Doncic, that's Austin Reeves, that's LeBron James, and that's if you want to put Marcus Smart in that category. And so you're missing half of that, and you can't expect LeBron James at this age to be the initiator. I mean, he scored 36 points against the Clippers, but he has to choose which role he wants to be in because he can't do both anymore. And this team, they're too slow. They're too dependent on those guards. And it's ironic that Luka went out because he went out Christmas Day last year with that calf injury. So it's very unfortunate that we might not see him on Christmas Day. I hope it's nothing serious, but I don't think they're going anywhere anyway. And without Luka Doncic, they're most definitely not going to be able to go anywhere. So I'm taking the Rockets on this one.
Yeah, I think I'm with you on the Rockets. I actually think that Luka and Austin Reeves will both suit up for this one, but it will just look all a little bit too banged up. I know Luka plays through all kinds of stuff throughout the course of a season, but I don't like this Lakers defense too much, and the Rockets are still winning big games, even if they're dropping a couple of those, which you think they should be winning. So we'll move on to our final matchup of the night, Drew, and I have to be honest, this is my favourite matchup of the whole thing. It's a shame that it's going to be when I'm tucked up in bed full of Christmas cheer at 3:30 a.m. UK time, but Timberwolves versus the Nuggets. Timberwolves 5th seed. They play the Knicks on Tuesday to prepare for this one. They've got a 19-10 record, 8-2 in their last 10. The injury report only has Jaden McDaniels because he went off in that Bucks win last night and didn't return. This team must be bouncing after beating the Thunder. They'll surely fancy themselves against both the Knicks and the Nuggets really in the next few days. But then, flip it over quickly to the Nuggets side too. The 3rd seed. They've got the Jazz and the Mavs in a back-to-back for this one. 20-7 record, 7-3 in their last 10. Injury report a little bit more stacked. Gordon Brown and Peyton Watson right now, but Watson is only questionable for the game against Utah on Monday, so we'll see if he manages to make it back for this one. But I don't know which way I go on this one, to be honest, Drew. Like this could be a real flip of a coin. It basically could depend to me on whether it's Jokic or Anthony Edwards that has the better stat line at the end of the night. I can't wait to watch this one on Boxing Day morning.
Yeah, I mentioned it last week. Minnesota has just quietly gone about their business. That was a big win on Friday night against the Timberwolves, and then picking up a win against the Bucks last night on Sunday. Their offense has improved, which you mentioned on our last episode, but I said that their defense had taken some slippage, but actually when you look at it, their defense is improving over the last 4 games, and those last 3 wins, they gave up 103 to the Kings, 107 to the Thunder. The Thunder are averaging 120 points a game, and then they gave up 100 points to the Bucks. Now, if you're NBA historian, you're thinking, oh, what are you talking about? Like, they scored 100 points. This is the new NBA now. Like, teams are averaging, I think the league average is 116 or something like that. And so if you're holding a team under 105 points, you're doing a phenomenal job defensively. So their defense is starting to click back in the right direction. And this is a great. It's unfortunate with the timing of this one because I agree with you. This is one of the better matchups that we have. Denver as well. Like, they've just continued to trend through their injuries, and Jokic has seemed like the noise have quieted down, but he just continues to get it done.
Yeah, so who have you got for this one then, Drew? I think I'm probably just going to say that Denver edge this one, but I'm interested to know who you've got.
Yeah, I'm going with Denver, and the only reason why I'm going with it is because they're at home. That's a tough place to play. We know about the altitude there in Denver, and I think Jokic, again, I mean, he doesn't talk this way, but he's a competitor. I know he's going to want to prove that, hey, you haven't been talking about me in the MVP ladder lately. Let me just remind you. So I don't think that Minnesota has an answer for him. Obviously, they have Gobert, but this is a different beast we're talking about down low. So I'm going to go with Denver, and that's strictly the home court advantage.
Yep, cool. Both taking Denver for this one then. Slightly quicker hitter of an episode this week. Manic Mondays for both Drew and I before the holiday starts. But we just want to say thank you for all the support. Merry Christmas to everybody out there. We'll return with those rankings next week and sum up what's been the first year of Crossover the Pond and another great year of NBA basketball action. So thank you very much for listening to this one and take care. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas, everyone.